Welcome to part 3 of this series on the teachings of Yeshua. In this video, we'll be exploring the paradigm of contemporary practices that Yeshua has given us to assist us in deeply embodying the way that he taught 2,000 years ago. In this video, we'll be considering how we can apply and embody Yeshua's teachings, shifting our awareness from the mindset of the fallen fractal to the world of the real, the kingdom of heaven. We'll be exploring the contemporary forms of meditation and contemplation that Yeshua has given us in recent times in support of our spiritual awakening and self-realization. We'll also discuss how to call on Yeshua's name, his Shem, his light, his atmosphere and sound to bring about healing in our lives. We'll look at ways that we can use the Aramaic language that Yeshua spoke to deeply unwrap the meanings held in the Gospels, engaging our somatic senses as well as gaining cognitive insight. We'll explore how to enrich our spiritual practice through the use of Aramaic prayer and chant, becoming more deeply attuned to the field of Yeshua's ministry and transmission. First, let's consider one of his recent teachings, the art of spiritual peacemaking, which he wrote together with James Twyman. Yeshua regards this book as a central text for contemplative use, working in combination with the meditations and spiritual practices that he has created for us today. We recommend having a copy of this text on hand as you revisit the practices in the way of the mystic over time. Details about how this work came to be written can be found in the book's introduction, which is quite a story of blessing and synchronicity all in itself. What we will be considering here today is Yeshua's teaching on the 3 enlightenments from Lesson 11, pages 32 to 33. We are on a journey of awakening. In reality, this is a journey that leads back to where you have always been. No distance has been crossed, for you have never truly left your home. The thought of God has never left its source, and that thought has been identified as you. And now a new light dawns upon your open mind, for you have begun to embrace an ancient experience that leads to your full illumination. Your enlightenment is at hand, and the grace of your birthright suddenly fills your soul. The awareness of your enlightenment will occur in 3 stages. This is what we are calling the 3 enlightenments. Illumined mind, awakened heart, realized soul. Notice that I referred to this as the awareness of your enlightenment. This is the critical distinction that must be observed, then accepted, before any real shift occurs. You are already enlightened. In fact, there is nothing but this seemingly elusive state in the whole universe. Perfectly revealed every moment as you. You cannot choose whether this is true or false, but you can choose whether you are conscious of it. Until now, you have chosen to live within the ego's right constraints, completely misidentified by its version of who you are and what the world is for. But now a light has opened in your mind, and you are at least able to consider the possibility that you are so loved of God that grace wrapped itself around you the instant you were conceived by eternity and enfolds you still. As you surrender to this love, you will feel yourself waking up to the vision of the real world, a place where time does not exist and your holiness shines forever. First, your mind will open, then your heart, and finally your whole soul. Over the next several lessons, we will examine these stages and how you can use the emissary wheel to excite the process. The first enlightenment, illumined mind. This is the light that shatters your perception of everything you thought was real and everything you value in the world. Its effect is stronger than anything you can consider with your mind. Imagine that you have been sitting in a dark closet for many years, when suddenly the door opens to a cloudless sky. The sun is directly above and you are blinded by its effect. Now multiply this by 100, then 1,000, and you are then close to the powerful opening you will experience when the first enlightenment dawns. You will see the world through new eyes and believe that you have finally arrived at the end of your journey, but you have not. It is but the first stage of your awakening, and it is essential that you do not accept this. The contrast alone is enough to convince you that you must have achieved full illumination. But the ego still clings to the walls of your mind and is afraid to move forward. We will define the ego as the part of you that believes it is separate from everything that exists. It is not real, just as you or the concept of you is not real. This is your salvation. You now look out upon the world you created and realize that you created it. Do you understand? You are no longer the effect, but the cause, and thus do you realize your power. But power without an awakened heart is nothing, and so we move on to the second stage. The second enlightenment, awakened heart. You will recognize a master who has achieved the second stage by their willingness to give everything to everything. How can you hold back when the whole universe is giving to you every moment? Your heart explodes and becomes a river of refreshment to all beings. They come to you with parched tongues and drink from the grace that flows from deep within. When you look upon them, you see only the beloved, for you know that only the beloved exists, and your praise is unmatched. Words cannot speak of this state, for they are but the concepts of a world that no longer exists for you. And yet there is a new language that you have learned, the language of the heart, of love itself. You are that love now, The instant the second enlightenment occurs, the first thing you will say to yourself is, how could I have not seen this before? It is the most obvious thing in the universe, and so it is with you and all beings, for the awakened heart reveals that which cannot change within you. But you are still not finished. There is still one final opening, the third stage. The third enlightenment, realize soul. Of this we cannot speak. The moment you try to conceptualize this state is the instant you return to the world of form. The world the realized soul views, but through half-opened eyes. It would not be true to say that they are in the world at all, just as you are not in the world, even now. But the true master sees both within them, and thus becomes the bridge that leads others into the vast light of realization. Stand beside them and you are but a step away. Enter yourself and you realize that there is no step at all. It was all in your mind, then your heart, and it is now but a memory that fades, as does the darkened sky come dawn. The shadows that frightened you so appear as harmless friends, and you find yourself wrapped in a deep, incomprehensible peace. You are home, the home you never left except in your imagination. There is nowhere for you to go now, for the light has come to you at last. And yet, through all these 3 stages of your enlightenment, nothing has changed at all. You are the same as you have ever been. You may have noticed how the themes in the 3 enlightenments bear a strong resemblance to Yeshua's teachings on the head, heart and belly from Transcendence Journey of the Soul. Of interest also are the motifs of sky, sun, amplification, enfoldment in love, and the river of refreshment. We'll be considering the somatic orientation of Yeshua's work later in this video. Let's explore Yeshua's approach to meditation and spiritual practice in greater detail now. First, let's review the principles behind the practices. This is not an exhaustive list of gospel passages on these themes, just a brief look at points of thematic connection. Firstly, love in 3 directions finds its parallel in Matthew 22, verses 35 to 39. And one of them who knew the law asked him, testing him, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus said to him, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your power and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And the second is like to it. Love your neighbour as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang the law and the prophets." Here, Yeshua is combining Leviticus 19:18, which refers to loving your neighbour as yourself, The line in the Shema prayer to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and might, and Deuteronomy 6:5, love God with all your heart. Yeshua's teachings abound with references to qualities of love, peace and joy, courage and compassion, kindness, mercy and generosity. You could say that the Gospels are a treatise on qualities of love. Yeshua also emphasized how important it was to go through an inner change of heart, returning, flowing back into right relationship with God. He emphasized how our inner state is important and we are responsible for it. He advocates calling on his name, healing in his light, receiving his transmission. This experience was central to the early church, and we'll be talking about this a bit later in the video. We can see in the Gospels how Yeshua is advocating a shift from the value system of the world, the fallen fractal, to that of the kingdom of heaven, from inequality, shame and blame, regret and penance, to equality of value, to dignity, belonging, and forgiveness. He points us towards a world of unconditional love and continuous and infinite divine supply. Alongside this, he calls us to innocent perception, inviting us to be like little children, transparent, open-hearted, and receptive. Come as you are, he says. Let the light of divine love work its miracles in you. He asks us to have compassion for everyone and forgiveness without limits, no matter what we are experiencing. He asks us to release all judgment and instead to bless everything and everyone that comes into the window of our awareness. The shifts that we are being invited to are profound. They contradict our instincts for survival and our duality-based perception of life. The way can seem narrow and the door difficult to pass through. Here we have the arrow to the mark image that illustrates Yeshua's suggestion that we approach the narrow door consciously, understanding what we need to do clearly and doing it wholeheartedly. On the way to the door, we meet our own mistrust, our loss of faith, our bitterness and our opposition to love unconditionally. We meet our wounded sense of inequality, shame and blame, failure, fight, flight, freeze and fold. On the other side of the door is the world of love consciousness, the reality of love alone. As we pass through the door in our awareness, the path as we understand it ends. The immense light of life within us and within all of creation shines without distortion. This is reality as Yeshua experiences it. Given all the distractions of duality in the world around us and all the conditioning inside us, The door can appear small or narrow at first, and it requires our committed attention. We may meet what seems to be a world of pain, a world that has been abandoned to itself. It's imperative that we don't get pulled into the storyline, that we don't invest in it with fear and striving, conflict and opposition, building yet another level of narrative. He asks instead that we turn towards the reality of heaven, that we relate to the world as divine awareness relates to it. Here, our Christ light is already like a flower unfolding. Love is as natural as breathing. Here we are bathed in a world of divine consciousness, the kingdom of heaven that he is pointing to in the Gospels. As we choose it, so it expresses on earth. Light is no longer bent in ways that cause suffering. The world of appearances comes to reflect the world of heaven. Now we turn our attention to healing and transformation in the light of Yeshua. The practice of calling on the Shem of Yeshua, his light, name, atmosphere, sound or vibration, and receiving the Spirit of holiness, also called the Paraclete, Advocate, Comforter, Counselor, Helper and Intercessor, is clearly attested in the Gospels, in the Acts of the Apostles, and in the letters of Paul. This speaks to a baptism of light that followed the baptism of water that the followers of Yeshua underwent. They received light during their worship gatherings, as prophecy, as insight, and as witness to the truth. Light was transmitted by the apostles to the believers through the laying on of hands. This was an active experience of blessing, spiritual healing, and illumination, divinely gifted to each member of the early community. We can still receive this divine light in our meditations and healing practices today, through individual laying on of hands and in group settings such as worship and transmission meditation. There are a number of ways that we can attune to this divine light. One is to ask to connect with the heart of Yeshua, asking for and receiving his transmission of love light essence. We can also attune to the light of the Holy Spirit, which comes as white light carrying the quality of the resurrection, the deepest suffering turned into love, darkness turned into light. This is the atmosphere of Easter morning and Christmas Eve. It purifies, uplifts, and transfigures us. We can also receive the Christ light, the blessing of the Shem of the world of heaven, as a gentle golden hue that is comforting, nurturing, and uplifting. We experience the activity of grace through all of these different frequencies of love light awareness. Each in their own way, they help us to unravel and untie our inner knots as we agree to this, softening what is rigid within us. Here we have an image of the golden chalice meditation, that was given by Yeshua to Rama in 2024. He's been using it regularly as part of his practice with good effects. The process in this meditation is one of receiving the Christ light as an upward flowing or spiraling of golden luminosity along our column, gradually filling the lower part of our field. This creates an immersive experience for our body. A recording of the Golden Chalice meditation is provided with the resources in this module, together with a written script that can be used for independent practice of the meditation. We can use Aramaic chant and prayer in our practice in much the same way as some traditions use Sanskrit. Links to useful resources have been included in the material for this module. In terms of sourcing Aramaic vocabulary for use in chant, meditation and prayer, we recommend The Hidden Gospel by Neil Douglas Klotz. There's a very helpful glossary of Aramaic terms at the back of this book. Lines or phrases in the Lord's Prayer might be used individually, or the prayer can be used in its entirety. We can also sound and contemplate individual Aramaic words like Allah, Ruha, Shemaya and Malkutah, and link these to the flow of our breathing. This helps us to enter the state of true prayer, the embodied experience of heaven within us and around us. We can use the Aramaic words to help us to realize that the divine is a state that we pray from, rather than something or someone that we pray to. There's so much richness to explore here in your practice, in whatever way you feel called to. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Yeshua invites us to experience spirit through contemplations that engage our somatic senses and their connection with the subtle realms of our inner being. His ancient teachings are full of imagery related to the natural world. So too are his recent writings and practices. The metaphors and symbols that he uses point to real processes in our mind-body field. They assist us in texturally engaging with the energy substance of our field in a meaningful and dynamic way. In his original Aramaic teachings, we have themes of blood, wine and sap, vine and branches, bread of life, living water, breath, wind and spirit, name, light and atmosphere, rain and sun, mustard seed and yeast, images of aliveness and potency, the activity of divine consciousness, here and now, creative, life-giving, present. In his current teachings, he uses images of weather and atmosphere, sun, sky and sea to convey the textures of illumination and the freedom of liberated awareness. We see this in the body like sky practice and the ocean awareness meditation. He speaks of waterfalls and fountains of light, of how we are wrapped and enfolded in love. He draws our attention to the space above us, below us, behind and before us, to the spaciousness within us and around us, filled with spirit and alive with presence. Yeshua is drawing us bodily, boldly, into resonance with the real, through these images, textures, and sensations that are intimately familiar to our human awareness. Through the gate of our embodied perception, he is calling us into a direct experience of the sacred ground of being.